Greetings and salutations, race fans, motorsport lovers, and others. You know where you come from. That place with a half a mountain, the whiners and the whingers. Gary,
welcome
to episode 83.
Mr. Saul Hack.
Thank you. Hello.
Episode
Are you welcome? Are you well, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you.
What are you doing? What are you doing here?
I'm joining you apparently.
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 Are you going to behave yourself?
I'll try.
Okay, cool.
Episode 83 of Waved Yellow from the higher ground in the grounds of St. Stithians. It's winter in Joburg officially. It's dark, it's cold, but it's lekker. And it's another exciting week of motorsport. We have a champion in our midst. Saul Hack, the reigning Middle East Porsche Pro-Am champion.
Yeah.
And the Harry Potter glasses?
That's my normal glasses.
Gotta love them. So we start with things, what was. And Gary, I suppose the biggest thing that everybody in the motorsport is talking about in the world at the moment is how Kevin Harvick had the fastest car at Michigan and he didn't win. So sadly the pit crew and stuff and wheel nuts and all the rest of it let him down. It was tragic.
The boss is watching.
Hello, boss. Which boss?
Henk.
Hello, Henk. So,
Yeah.
to celebrate, I mean, there are big things coming with the partnership with Henk and the
We might as
crew
well tell
and-
people about the partnership because we haven't done that yet.
No, we did. We did last week.
Did we?
Gary,
I can't remember last week, but let's tell them again.
we haven't
anyway.
done for a long time. Gary, check
Yeah.
my eyes. Gary, you need to focus.
Wait, Colin. Let me just check.
You need to focus, bro. All that stuff is that there's...
Da-
I
don't.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't. There's scrambled eggs in there. Gary,
If this
boiled
time,
eggs.
if this time I bring out a jingle jar, it's 2,000
No,
rand a pop
Gary,
for
I
you.
promise I won't say that bad word again. I apologize if you're upset. Go to the cafe and buy some cement pills and harden up. Because that's just the way we roll. Gary lost his earpiece.
It's but
which
Colin's
is
toe there.
over here.
There we
This
go.
is high technology.
Yeah.
We're still trying to work.
Well,
if
we
anybody
cannot-
knows.
we cannot be getting clever.
Yeah, but there's another one that I want to get you, Gary, and the name has just gone out of my mind. Phonak. If anybody knows anybody from Phonak, please get in touch with us. So, motor racing fans are lovely. We do this, Gary, because we love racing.
Correct.
Saul, you're not just a passenger at the moment. We're going to dedicate the show. Awesome. Glad you got trained. Our legal department, have you signed the disclosures and everything?
All done. All complete.
Did our people talk to your people?
No, they didn't actually, but we can talk after.
Gotta love it.
Okay,
So
so,
we-
about that package.
So we all love motor racing. And
But we had a great weekend last weekend for South
yeah,
Africa.
Gary, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
Can I just start with
Sorry.
the thing that the whiners and whingers at the half mountain country are talking about?
We have to go there.
All I want to say is that there's rules in racing. And Emmanuel Perot, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's kind of like the King of Le Mans, 5 times Le Mans winner, an awesome guy, stand up, straight up, and he doesn't deserve the abuse that has been thrown at him worldwide. Race officials do this because of love and passion. Don't abuse them. Try and understand the rules, and sometimes you're the pigeon, and sometimes you're the statue.
Yeah.
Right, enough of that.
Yeah.
Awesome weekend for GT racing for South Africans and single seater.
Yes.
For a single seater
I mean-
racerette.
Saul was there doing his little bit. Calvin was there. He did another little bit. Sheldon
And
went and did
Sheldon
a little bit of something.
And Tasman.
And Tasman Pepper was out there doing something else.
So Tasman, we're really sorry that that you with Auto Trader tonight, because I'm sure that you would have much preferred to be with us, but next time. Because
That is true.
yeah,
Well, you know, I mean, people got to go out there. They've got to pay, make sure that they're
who's
getting their
paying who? Gary, you said pay.
pay. Colin,
paying?
you know that we do this for the love of it. We don't do this for money.
Is that why I do it, Gary?
Yeah, but it's coming to that point. Maybe we should go jingleberry.
Absolutely love racing.
And while you're waffling there, just let me say hi to everybody. Turn
I'm
Waffles
waffling.
online. David White, nice having you. Thank you for
Is
joining
Greg
us.
Charman there? Because he phoned and... Oh, we need to explain. We have noticed globally the activity that... you know that social media spies on everything. You
Yes.
know, and Siri, the chick that sits in your phone, she's got to have a skinny ass to fit in there. Anyway, so they sit in there and they listen to everything that you do and they follow you and they know what is what.
So you trying to tell me that Mark Zuckerberg is following us and watching
Oh,
us?
for sure. He knows. That's why. So bottom line,
Can't get away from these guys, can we?
some of the insights that came back to us from our research department was that 6 o'clock globally is not a good time for us to roll. They wanted us to go at 7. We wanted to go at 6:30. So we, in the spirit of world peace,
Yeah.
we compromised, and it's 6:45. So we were bang on 6:45. It's not us who's late, it's you. Gary put out a thing. So from now on, we're going to go 6:45 because it's better than 7. It's not as good as 6:30, but 6:45 South African
Yeah.
Standard Time.
Yeah.
That's our new time.
That's our new time slot.
And in summer, Gary, how cool it's going to be when we can sit here in t-shirts and shorts. But at the moment, it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
cold.
that's why we're wearing these fancy Mopar jackets, because it helps keep out the cold.
Because, and the link is Mopar is a sponsor of the SA Endurance Series. They support us. They help with the live streaming. They're absolutely awesome. So if you've got stuff with your car, go to Mopar. They'll fix it. So, Saul Hack.
Yes.
You're a lot smaller and lighter than I had in my head. How much do you weigh?
At the moment, 72.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing in your mind?
Considering that I come in under 80 kilos in the car with my kit on, it's a good thing.
So, you are current Pro-Am or Am Middle East Porsche champion. You currently driving in the Mobil 1 Super Cup, Porkers. Your sponsor's color is pink.
Yes.
My favoritist of favorite Porsches in the world was a 917 that the Germans called a Porker. When are you going to paint your car pink?
When BWT pay me directly, then I'll paint it pink.
You mean they're paying you indirectly at the moment?
At the moment, it's a team sponsor.
You running in Walter Lechner's team. Walter Lechner's a legendary German, a Porsche, more than a legend. What's it like working with in a team run by an icon of Porsche races?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to work with the guys and see how they operate. Walter has got tremendous experience, and I was lucky enough to be in Austria now, which obviously is where he comes from. And I went to the operation and saw how they did things. You know, you see all the history, and he's very old school, so he doesn't really go overboard in terms of upgrading his facilities. The facilities are what you need, and it's really it's unbelievable to see.
But from a setup point of view and a workmanship point of view, the guy produces, I suppose they've got to be the winningest team in Super Cup racing globally at the moment.
They're the most successful Porsche Cup team in the world, and historically he's won the most Super Cup championships. He also is very much a driver-orientated person when it comes to developing drivers. So his development program, you find a lot of the drivers going from his program into factory teams along the line.
And how, the one thing about team bosses is when you bend the metal, which happens in racing from time to time, occasionally. What's his response? Is he a shouter and a screamer or a silent treatment guy?
You know, it depends on what you do and how you do it. You know, if you do something and it's not your fault and it's just part of racing, then you know he's actually quite relaxed. But if you go and make a mistake and you've really done something silly, he can have a few words with you. Yeah.
And then he sends you the invoice.
And then the invoice comes. Yeah.
And it's in euro.
They do work in euros.
And that's hard.
At that point, I stopped.
Who do you pass that invoice back to?
My sponsors.
Oh, okay, fine. Just a quick one. Tasman's Peppers decided to join us online, so
Hello,
welcome.
Tassie.
Tasman.
Well done last weekend. Freaking awesome.
Awesome girl.
Chicks
And,
racing in the world.
Greg Jarman
Takeover.
is finally woken up. He's just popped on
No, he
online.
whined and whinged because we were late. Where's it going?
No, he's
Greg,
finally tuned in.
Glad you're there. New time 6:45,
Yeah.
18:40 South African Standard
Yeah,
Time.
and then Stadaria Motorsports also online. They just decided to wake up because
Welcome, Shaw.
they've just got back from SWAT Corps.
Gary, we're going to talk about what you
Yes.
did at SWAT Corps just now, and I'm led to believe that Mission Minnow is in Vereniging.
Yes, we're going to get to that one, but just quickly, young Stewie White's online. So Stewie White, do me a favor, in the comment section, just write out when you leaving again and what's the next race you go to, so we can let people know. And all the best for the next one, boy. Have you ever seen this kid, Stuart White?
Of course.
Have you been to the same racetrack with him at all?
I've actually raced with him.
When did you race with him, if I may ask?
When I was originally in Formula Ford.
And that was it.
Who ripped who's?
Gary, that's an.
Oh, Dingleberry!
But now hold on. I'm glad somebody else brought up Formula Ford, because that's got to be. It's a bit of a sore point, but a learning point, and a point that kind of, I suppose, inflection. It changed your future. You had an incident. What happened?
I had brake failure. So when I was doing Formula Ford, I was on and off because I was still studying at the time. And then during, I think it was my third race back from university, when I came back to the country, I had brake failure in the one race, and it sent me flying into a few fences and barriers and whatnot.
The spectators in the car park were running because you landed in the car park.
I hit I think the only thing that saved me was the fact that the bikes were racing that day, and they had those balloons on the barriers. Yeah. So I think that helped me, and I ended up walking away. I was lucky.
And then what happened? But hold on. You mentioned a little thing. You came back from overseas. You weren't always a racing driver.
No, I was actually a swimmer.
What stroke?
Butterfly.
50 fly.
50 and 100 fly.
That's not easy.
No. The training's not easy.
And I mean, you've got to. Particularly, you spent time in America on swimming scholarship, but training in Joburg, not lacquer in the winter.
It wasn't so bad. I was training with Mandeville Dolphins and Dean Price, so we had a nice indoor facility that we could train in the winter. But it was freezing cold to get in the winter.
But you come out of the pool, and strange you should mention that stroke and those distances. I spent probably 5 years next to a swimming pool with my daughter, 50, 100 fly and 200 fly, and the exercise. I mean, I'd take my hat off for you.
I got away with doing a lot of 200 fly. I got out of that because that's a killer.
And so you went to America. What changed? You studied there. What changed swimming to racing?
I think when I grew up, I always wanted to race. And when I was about 16, 17, I would kind of plead with it. In fact, when I was 3 years old, my parents put me on a motorbike for the first time. So I was on dirt bikes until I was about 14. And then I stopped because of all the different sports I was doing at school. And I always wanted to get into karts, but it was an expensive sport. Even back then, it was still expensive.
Gary, he wants to get into karts, says a Porsche Super Cup driver.
No, it's different. But in those days, my parents couldn't afford it, and I wanted to really get into motor racing. And it was always a passion. That's why we do it. It's a passion-driven thing. And when I was about 18, 19, I made the decision that because my good friend that I was training with was going overseas, I knew that I wanted to try and pursue the same avenue as him and see maybe I could get to the Olympics one day.
That's in swimming, eh?
That's in swimming, yeah. And because I've never been one to pursue a kind of, to a certain extent, I always want to go the full way and get to the top.
So you're kind of competitive?
I'm very competitive, yeah.
And when walking in the shopping centre, do you also practice your traffic thing where you go in and out the...
I kind of picture it, yeah. No, I am generally competitive, and when I do something, I like to do it as best as I can. So the swimming, I knew that I could get me a scholarship and I could go overseas, and that was really the pursuit. But eventually, I fell out of love with it in terms of the way I was doing it, and
it's a hard sport where, the amount of training for that 30-second or 19-second, whatever, 50 meter, it's hours and hours and hours for 20 seconds.
It is a difficult sport. I mean, any sport is difficult. If you're going for in fact, I take my hat off to any Olympian. doesn't matter what sport you're going for, it's very difficult. There's always politics involved. There's always something involved that will stop you along the way. So to be involved in sport is a difficult thing in general.
But you've got to have that determination and tenacity where no matter how many times they kick you in the nuts, it's how you get up and...
Pushing for it, yeah.
Okay, so then you drive a Ford, you scribble it bigly.
Just a question. In those days, was it called Formula Ford or F1600?
I knew it as Formula Ford 1600.
Okay, all right. Now, just why don't you
It
guys...
was a year or two before they changed the wings. in the
Okay,
car, yeah.
all right, okay.
So you scribble this car, and what now? You're very lucky to have walked away with a bit of whiplash and some bruising.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you sit down with your advisors, and what was to become a big mentor of yours, Toby?
Yeah, so I was actually told I need to stop the racing now and, go and do something else. But
What did you study?
I did a BSc in Business Administration and Management.
So now, to stop playing with these silly racing cars and putting yourself at risk.
Yeah,
Go into business,
I
Saul.
also realized that if you want to pursue a racing career, you have to try and develop some kind of business out of it, because racing is really quite money based now, and there has to be some kind of return on it at some point. But the biggest pursuit was obviously to become a driver before I could do anything else. Otherwise, no one wants to listen to someone who can't really drive. So that was really the biggest goal, was to try and pursue a driving career. And that started where we approached Toby Fenter, and he basically guided me in a particular direction. That was starting with this 996 Cup car that I was racing locally.
And, from a racing Porsche's got to be the most awesome racing brand in outside of single seaters. Let's put that, because the red guys will get all upset with us, Gary. You know how temperamental the frickin' Italians are.
Yeah.
So the Germans build awesome, strong, reliable cars, and they've got an infrastructure that can handle customer racing.
Yeah.
And then you have a few races here, and then by chance, Walter Lechner comes to Kyalami.
So actually how it happened was, we did the first race, and when I did the testing, my times were quite good. So I think Toby invited Walter for a number of reasons. The most...
Guys, by the way, Walter is Herr Walter Lechner, the legend of Porsche racing.
So
Walter came.
So Walter came out. Mostly it was to have a visit with Toby and see the track. They've known each other for many years. And Walter came to see the track, helped Toby with a few things, and then obviously introduced him to me. And that was when Walter invited me to come and do a test after he saw the race and everything. And the plan was never to go overseas at that point. It just happened that we met him at that particular moment, and things kind of fell into place from there.
So, people talk about luck, and you make your own luck, and to take advantage of luck, you've got to be open and positive and alert. So you go and test a car, and because you can go and buy a drive, but if your times aren't good enough, you're not going to carry on.
Yeah, I think the one thing I like about Walter is he's a bit of a realist, so he'll go and tell you whether you can drive or not, whether there's potential or not, and whatever. And I've seen it firsthand with a couple of guys. He's gone up to them and said to them, maybe we need to pursue this in a different direction. And, being with the team, and his whole focus is driver development. And I think that's really why his platform works so well.
So now you're running in, we can sit here for days and days, but we've got limited time because of stuff. You're now running in the Super Cup. You've done some tests. You're in the big show of Porsche racing at all the Grand Prix.
Yeah, so the Porsche Super Cup actually came about. Again, it wasn't something that I wanted to do, saying I'm pushing for it and I want to be part of Lechner Racing. Before the last round of this Middle East series, or the Middle East Championship, I got a call from one of the Blancpain teams actually. And they offered me a drive in there, and they're really a top team, and they offered me a drive in their, basically their gentleman car. It's funded by the gentleman driver, and they needed a silver driver.
So that's the other interesting thing is as you develop along and you maintain your status and you're quick enough to win a championship, to win any international championship, I don't care who you are, you've got to be okay. So what happened with that?
So, because Walter has basically brought me to a level where I can compete on an international level, I phoned him immediately, and I also spoke to Toby about it, and I asked them, what do they think about it? And I'm very transparent when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I think you need to be, otherwise, they'll hide something from you.
And you get caught up in the politics, and it's messy.
So I'm very transparent, and Walter advised me in terms of the fact that if you go to any team and you've never driven on these tracks, because I've never driven on any of the tracks that the Blancpain takes place on, and he says basically the first thing they'll ask you is, have you driven the track before? And second of all, they'll ask you like what your times were, and then that means who's going to qualify the car. So if you haven't driven there before, you're not going to qualify the car. It means you're not really going to get the amount of time in the seat, and then possibly the one driver can shunt the car, and you don't.
And you start races way back on the grid because so it's a bit of a shoe show.
It's difficult, and then you're learning at the back, and so essentially I want to become the best driver I can be. And Walter basically said to me straightforward, he says, if you really want to challenge as a driver, the Super Cup's the best place to be.
And what are those cars like to drive? 450 odd horsepower?
485 horse. I think your dry weight's around 1260 kilos.
So it's a heavy car with a bit of grunt and some reasonable aero.
There's no aero. The aero is kind of more for show. There's only as much aero as they've developed over the year, but it's not really like a Formula car or a GT3 car. And there's no ABS, there's no traction control. So the car is very prone to a particular driving style, and that's really what you're there to master. And every track's different. Obviously, there's some tracks that you've got to do certain things in a certain way, and that's what makes it so amazing with some of the guys, is how precise they are, especially in the Super Cup.
Because they are heavy, they do slide, and it's a super competitive. It's a bit chilly, hey? You need to talk to BWT. They've got to give you some winter kit.
I should have brought it, but the car is very prone to small mistakes, and if you do make a small mistake here and there, you're not talking big time, but you're talking a tenth here and there. And when you're at a particular level, and a tenth here and there on a track that's got 20 corners, you're talking 2 seconds.
And when you've got 20 or more cars there of guys who are as hungry as you are, you go from being in the top half of the field to being in the back part.
Yeah.
So just those when you say a small mistake, can you be a bit more specific? What do you mean, just for a lot of the young guys who watch us, and they may not be aware of some of the crucial issues. So a small mistake to you, be a bit more specific and just explain a little bit more for somebody else who's watching so they can learn from it.
Yeah, so you get a big mistake where it's a full lockup, and a lockup on that car means you basically scrub a set of tyres. And so making small mistakes is really, like Silverstone, for instance, we had the official test last week, 2 weeks ago, and for me to get a full lap in with basically on the limit, I just didn't get it right. And by the end of it, I was 1.2 seconds off the pace, and it's a big circuit. I can't remember how many corners there are, and 1.2 seconds off the pace is really, it looks like a lot, but if you look in the data, you're looking at a tenth on this corner and half a tenth here and another half a tenth there, and that eventually adds up, and there's your 1.2 seconds.
So in a 1 minute 40 or 1 minute 50 lap, so 100 seconds, every 10 seconds you're making a tiny little error that takes you from hero to not so hero.
Yeah, like this weekend in Red Bull Ring, I think from P1 to P26 was 1.2 seconds.
It's so competitive, but how cool is that for somebody with a drive who understands in swimming? Gary, they say that 6 inches is a lot.
Behave yourself here. Eh?
But in swimming, it's a hell of a lot.
Yeah, but even in swimming, the time makes up who's going to win and who's not, and who's in first, who's in eighth, and time is everything, really.
And there's so much, I mean, the similarities, sport's actually all the same. When the gun goes, you go and you go flat out and you get to the end.
Yeah.
But the critical, what's the criticalness, the word for that? How critical the start in swimming is, and that flying through the air and entering properly. I mean, that's got some similarities to as the lights go off and boom, you go.
Yeah, so I mean, everything especially with Porsche racing, because it's a sprint race, it's very, you rely heavily on your starts, on your qualifying. Every little part of the process makes up where you're going to finish and how you're going to end, and it also develops drivers for endurance racing. So if you know that you can wait around all day, specifically with like Super Cup, because Super Cup you wait around all day and then you got to go and you got 45 minutes practice on the Friday, and you got to basically be in that moment. You got to put it together, and it's the same as all the guys in DTM, in GT Masters. When it comes to qualifying, that's where you got to be in that moment, and the Porsche Cup racing lends itself to being very precise for a given amount of time.
Do you do any mental training? And you look fairly fit, and I mean that as a compliment. As a pro racing driver, you've got to be. Do you do any mental training, and what sort of training do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the swimming helped me prepare mentally. I take a lot of the stuff I used to do with the swimming when I knew how I would perform and that kind of stuff. Obviously with the racing it's a different game, and it works in a different way, somewhat similar to swimming, but I still have to I'm still learning actually. I'm still preparing myself in different ways, and I'm finding things that work and things that don't work, and especially now with the Super Cup, it's different. It's a different platform, new tracks, new guys that I'm driving with, so I'm always learning as I go. But definitely you got to mentally prepare yourself in terms of how you're going to start, how you're going to put together your qualifying lap, how you're going to keep your focus, and mentally it's quite heavy on yourself.
Gary,
just a quick one. George Verscheer's joined us.
George, the Lamar King of South Africa.
No.
I hope you're watching now there, George.
But he's got some interesting information. He raced against Walter in the late 80s. And Walter also had a kid that worked for him by the name of Toto.
Toto Lechner.
No,
Oh, Toto
Toto
Wolff.
So it's quite amazing that our South African boys have managed to get all this, and they've actually all played in this game. And here we're sitting with Saul, who's now being mentored by somebody that raced against George Verscheer, for argument's sake. And all this information keeps on coming. That's what I love about all of this. People just feed us information. I get information overload when I do this, I promise you.
Sorry to cut you off, but a funny story Walter always tells, and remember I said to you he's quite a realist when it comes to telling you can drive or not. He tells quite an interesting story about how Toto was originally a driving instructor for him at one point, part of the Lechner Racing School. And he talks to, I remember him telling me the story, I don't want to get it wrong, but I remember him saying to Toto, I think you need to focus on the business side of things more than the racing. And I would say it was quite a good
It's a real good choice.
Just a quick one, before you get it, just a quick one, okay? The whole world is watching us. Sheldon van der Linde's dialed in, Calvin's dialed in. I'm just waiting for Jordan to come online. Everybody that's gone to PE this week and to go and race all these other fancy cars like the GTCs and
a major GTC, Falcon Polo Cup racing.
Yeah, they're all online. I mean, guys, I'm glad we decided on this time. You must all be having finished dinner because you're watching.
We're going to get to Germany, and it wasn't Germany. It was there was Misano, and where was Kelvin? Oh, there you go. Thanks. I mean, I've got Alzheimer's and scrambled eggs in here. I've got Gary's scrambled eggs disease.
Quick one. Question for you from Keith Berta. What's been the biggest distraction during a race causing you to make a mistake?
It's probably when a driver in front of me or next to me or does something silly that I get a little bit frustrated about. And I tend to let my frustration sometimes take over, and I start to think about that instead of thinking about the rest of the race. But I think up to then it's really been the biggest and hasn't really caused any issues.
Well, there you got it.
You know that-
Keith, we answer questions. We get them from the horse's mouth.
He's not calling you a horse, but I mean, so George Fisher is still the only South African, or the only South African driver who's got a
Sorry,
Can
can we? We're just busy. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. Catering
Thanks very much.
is fully on it. He's got a Japanese character because George raced in Japan, and he's a legend. The sushi bars in Tokyo are still scared of George. Many people are scared of George. An absolute character.
Well, I'm going to open an invitation. George, take us to a sushi bar one day. We'll do an interview with you there.
Or you can, it would be cool to join us here. So let's just go a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just throw forward. What's next? So you go and do this Super Cup thing. Clearly you've got a thing where, and you must be aware that there might be a career path in racing overseas, but you're bringing a porker to South Africa.
Yeah, there's. I've been part of the plan. The Super Cup really at the moment in this season is a learning curve. It's where I'm basically getting into the European side of international motorsport and learning my way through that. I'd love to bring more motorsport back to South Africa. That's really part of my goal and part of my process of trying to uplift motorsport, as I'm sure a lot of other people are trying to do. So one of the things we've got planned is obviously the Kyalami 9 Hours coming to South Africa.
End of November, tickets are on sale. Go and get your tickets. It is going to be unbelievable. Better than a Grand Prix.
Yeah. So the 9 Hours coming, and this is a project already. We found out about it when they announced it. I think it's about a year ago at Spa. And immediately I got a call from Mr. Fenter to ask regarding another SRO project, which would have been the Nations Cup. And we would have liked to have done that, but the timing just didn't work out. And there was no one else that was going to do it. And essentially what we then decided to do was, we knew the 9 Hours was coming, we wanted to put together a project. And part of the project is a Porsche GT3R will come to the country sometime this year. And it will be myself and Mr. Fenter doing the race together, and then we're going to have one of the Porsche factory drivers joining us.
Well, hell, do you know that saying? Go large and do it big. So this is when you say it's a full spec current GD3 car with all its updates, and it's busy getting its updates, the hardware and software uploaded.
It's getting the updates. I don't know actually, but
You mean that's the delayed message they sent to you?
yeah, that's what they tell me. But as far as I know, the car will be basically ready to run. And then we obviously have to do a shakedown on the car, and the normal processes that you would do with any new car.
I have a question for you at this specific point in time. If it's possible, when you do that shakedown,
Yes.
will you invite Colin and I to come and do a bit of a live thing with you and all that sort of stuff?
With pleasure.
As long as it's pink.
I don't know if it's going to be pink, but
It might be pink after we leave.
Toby, here's a challenge to you, and anybody and I know he's got Toby on speed dial. Toby, that car has to be a pink porker in celebration of the car that won at Le Mans a couple of years ago. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Would you like to drive one of those?
I'd love to drive one of those.
Say, Toby, please make it pink.
I'm not going to say anything.
We got to try. So that's absolutely fantastic. And then after that, what do you see? You've got to have an eye on GD3 racing internationally?
Yeah, I mean, long term, that's the plan. And my end goal, I think, would be to participate in a world championship. So your WEC really, for me, is the high point of, I think, a racing career, especially on the GT side. But that's still long down the line. I've still got a lot to learn and a lot to do.
You've said that so often, those words, I've got a lot to learn, and it just brings to me the focus that you understand that this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't have a huge ego, do you?
I mean, I try not to.
And you can come back, because we don't like dicks with big egos here. And just that focus
Colin, behave
of
yourself.
learning and being a better driver all the time. Do you do a bit of sim racing?
I do.
You race against David Perrell and the Van der Lindes and all that.
So, well, I've got we're actually in a group with Stewie, and Stewie put us all in a group together. So I think we've got Pepper, we've got the Van der Lindes, we've got, I'm just gone blank as I'm thinking of all the names now.
So
that's got to be a serious crew.
So
it's
Stewie
a really cool group of
Stewie put you in the
guys,
crew. How does Stewie fare in this crew? Is he leading?
I think everyone's a leader in the group.
Oh, politically correct as well. So you've learned sponsor speak already. Now,
No, it's
so
a good group of guys, and a lot of guys that have, the Van der Lindes and Pepper, they're obviously the top boys, and it's just nice and everyone's there for racing. We love racing, we all have the same passion, and I haven't been so involved the last couple of months because my sim's out of order, but it's nice to be online with everyone, and whether you're competitive or not, which we are pretty much all competitive, it's just good fun.
and that builds a bit of camaraderie amongst the South African drivers. And Gary, last week we said we were going to make a register of South Africans involved overseas, and I think we're sitting at 43 at the moment, including team members. They're either currently
team
active
managers, team
or
members,
were
mechanics,
active last year. It's
race engineers, drivers,
it's unreal.
and there. So yeah,
Sure, that's amazing.
for such a small country, with a number of people that actually participate in motorsport, to have such a big influence in motorsport, and it goes from everything down to Formula
Karts.
4 all the way right up to F1. We've got guys.
Got a world champion kart rider, Cristiano Morgado, in
Yeah.
DD2s.
Yeah.
Champion. I mean, he just goes there, doesn't race, and then pins it once a
Yeah,
year.
but we've got guys playing as mechanics and that sort of stuff in Formula 1. I mean, unfortunately, guys they never get mentioned.
No.
They're always
They don't get
hidden
enough credit.
and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's nice to see that, and nice to know that South Africans are able to get there.
So end of the year, you're going to effectively, that sim racing group that you've got here is all going to be on track at the same time at Kyalami.
Yeah.
That's going to be absolutely
Quick
magnificent.
last question
Absolutely.
from-
Love
from-
racing.
From the comments over here, what is your general opinion about South Africans racing abroad?
I mean, I think if you want to be a racing driver, that's the place to be. I think the Van der Lindes and Pepper have shown that you can do it, and Tasman now also with the W Series.
Yeah.
I think they've shown it's possible to get there. It's possible to achieve, I guess, your passion and your goals. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough, actually. As many as you just said there were, I think that's a lot more than I thought there was.
Yeah.
But I think there should be more.
We'd like to have more drivers, but to everybody else out there who watches us, you may never become an international driver. But if you're a good mechanic or a good engineer or a good race and especially somebody who can work with certain things, there is hope for you on the international motorsport scene, whether it be endurance racing cars or GT racing cars or even Formula 1 cars.
Or even cross country. We've got
That's
the
right.
current fast racing bucky in the world, just built a couple of kilometers down the road. Run out of here. They're the world champions at racing buckies.
Well-
You're not allowed to say racing buckies. I know, Mom. But they will always be racing buckies,
Well,
because they are
yeah.
F for fast. They are proper.
But besides that, in the world of building racing cars, we have probably the biggest workshops all gathered in a very small area, very close to Kyalami, that are involved in building world-class cars. We have Stewie Thompson, them on the WCT, the
World Championship Team.
World
I know you
Championship
wanted
Team.
to say something else. What else could WCT stand for, Gary?
World Championship Team.
Oh, there you go. That's what it
Yeah.
does.
I mean, he's building some pretty serious cars. You have the likes of Sodali Motorsport, not involved in the international thing, but they run very professionally, run international cars in
And
this
you've got
country for customers.
Scribantes who've built that Porsche. You've had a good look at that Porsche. It's kind of lacquer, isn't it?
Very cool. Very, very cool.
It's
What do you think? What do you think of the Kraken?
Which is the GTR the Kraken?
The GTR is actually, we
I
call
call
it
it
the
the
Kraken.
Kraken.
That's amazing.
They
that
call it the
pulled
Sheriff.
off, that they pulled it off. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
that thing is so far out of the world, and it's a mind blowing thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, they've obviously done their work behind the wing on the front and everything. I mean, when you look at it, it looks crazy, but it obviously works. It's quick.
Well, let's
It's
hope.
damn
Let's
quick.
hope when Sora opens the registrations, because Franco Scabante, Silvio Scabante, and Andre Besaidenote,
I see they're running a
on-
997R.
yeah, they're looking. So let's hope that they get the registration in and they get in there. But you have got other guys. We've got Charles Oranges from Sotalia Motorsport,
Yeah.
who's going to try and enter his Aston Martin. It's eligible.
Oh, but there's another car, Mission Minnow car.
Yeah.
Now,
And
for
that-
those of you who know Mission Minnow, work it out and put it into the comments.
and it
But
has
Gary,
nothing to do.
no,
with
don't
the
say that. Don't say that. You've just
the-
given it away. Oh, Gary, man. You just destroyed the whole thing because everybody's going, oh, Ferrari.
Calvin has just popped online. Any sales numbers so far for tickets to Kyalami? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I could probably find out. But
Well, just give you something that we have. They came out with a VIP package at Kyalami, okay? And in the VIP package, I think there was something like only 2,000 odd VIP packages at a price of around about 7,000 rand.
That's a good deal.
Okay, they were gone. 20 minutes. They're all sold out. All right.
This, back in the day, transfers, it's not that. We've got a live audience here tonight. So if you, got to get it right. Francis Tucker always
Yeah.
claimed there were 100,000 people at race at Kyalami. Now, there's no ways in hell that there were ever more than about 35,000 people there. And, when you put 30,000 people who are full of gears,
Yeah.
petrol heads of note, put some beer and boerewors in them, and man, that, if you're not there, you're not a proper racing car fan.
Just-
So
and
go
just-
and get your tickets now.
Just another quick one. Also, back to Calvin. And Calvin, thank you for joining us. Nice having you online. I know you're in Chiltern now, but I know you're also travelling very shortly.
And he's going to the biggest, most important tourist GT3 race in the world,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
he is the king of
Yeah.
the ring. Go, Kelvin.
Okay, they came out with early bird tickets. They put early bird tickets, which allows you entry into the track. That's all it does, okay? And they put them out at 160 Rand a ticket or something like that. Also, within the first hour and a half, around about 2,000 of them were sold.
But Gary, I believe that there's a general access ticket now. It
Yes.
costs you 200 Rand.
Yeah,
It is the cheapest form of entertainment, apart from self-gratification, in the world. You will not get to see 50 world-class machines and have hours of entertainment for that amount of money. It's, guys,
especially
Kyalami,
especially
9
with a bunch,
hour.
especially with a bunch of South African drivers in that field.
That
Okay,
fierce-
so at the moment on my hand I can count 5, only because the SARA hasn't opened the registration for all the South African entrants yet. Okay, so we got the two Van der Linders, we got Jordan Pepper, we got Saul in there,
David Perrell.
David Perrell's in there. So that's the 5 I'm counting it. When they open the registration for the next
No, and Toby.
Sorry,
he's-
and
Toby's
Toby,
also South
Toby
African.
Fenter. All right, when they open registration in the next couple of days, all right, you and I collectively know, and I don't want to tell anybody who they are, I'll rather wait that for another
Gary's got
show.
his secrets,
Yeah.
but our legal department have made him sign an NDO, and he's very concerned about legal departments nowadays. But Gary, we've got to focus and move forward. Mm-hmm. When you're back here, we need to, and it's getting closer to the 9 hour, it would be so cool to get you back and talk about, because a part that we haven't touched on is your involvement in the building of Kyalami. And you were not quite Bob the Builder, but you were Sean the Foreman.
I was
And-
involved in the process of the rehabilitation of the circuit. Yeah.
And I think that's a story that we'd like to talk at another time. But there are a couple of other shout-outs, Gary, that we've got to have
Yeah,
really. Oh, Greg Mills and Jan Lammers. They're in the road to Lamar, as is Nick Adcock and Michael Jensen.
yeah.
Lamar's red flagged at the moment because one of the, strangely enough, Dempsey Racing Proton scribbled itself all over the place. They're streaming there. It's unbelievable. It's magic. So Tassie Pepper, 8th in the championship, 7th in race 2. I think it was absolutely fantastic. Kelvin, ADAC Masters with Patrick Niederhauser. Interesting the way that Kelvin is moved around as a factory driver in through various teams,
Yeah.
and then the star racers come out, and Audi put him in there, and the N24. Watch that boy.
Yeah.
Is going to be unbelievable. And probably for me I suppose the surprise
Yeah.
is Adrian's kid, Jono Aberdeen, who did really, really well. I mean, for a kid who's coming, he's flown under the radar.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the big build-up of anybody. Race 1, it was 8th Abbo and 9th was Sheldon. Race 2, 7 Abbo and 9 Sheldon. The thing with those cars is the pit window and the strategy, and sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. Sheldon got the short stick.
On that weekend, I had the fortune. I sent a question to Sheldon. I didn't
You
expect.
got some insight.
I didn't
Yes,
expect
tell us,
an
Gary.
answer. In race 1, I said to him, I just sent the question. I said, did your tires go off? And he sent me back quite simply. He said, I spent too long behind the car in front of me, and I just ended up with tire degradation, and everybody just came past me. That was it.
And he used his push to pass
And everything else
what
just
are
to try and
all
stay
the
on there,
other
so.
bloody stuff and
So
all that.
what I find exciting is these guys are actually feeding us intelligent information, and the next person we've got to do that is Saul. Saul, what happened? Tell me, bro. Although he's actually pretty good, he puts it up there faster than I can send him a question. So I'd like to say thank you for thank you for putting out your information so that guys like us can actually help the public stay up to date with what your career is about. And it's that time of day. I've got to go and
It
do
is
what I've
that
got to do.
time. So, Saul, thank you very much for joining us. Can I ask you just to sign our production book? And good luck. What's your next race?
Next race is Red Bull Ring for the Formula 1 weekend with the Porsche Super Cup.
Slumming it again.
It's tough.
Guys, thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolute blast. Somehow it seems the weather seems to have got warmer. We're looking forward to... no, it's a hard compound tire pen from that blue tire company. There's racing in PE this weekend. Get yourself down there. There's the GTC cars. Going to be really great racing. There's Falcon Polo Cups. There's motorbikes. There's Formula 1600s. That's in PE. Then next weekend, it's Slummies, East London, the endurance race. Unbelievable. Well, Gary, there's an endurance race coming out. I get confused because our production people haven't given me a proper program. Thanks a lot for watching us. If there's anything that you want us to ask, people you want us to talk to, let us know. We'll do it. Have a great one. Stay fast, stay safe, and stay positive about racing in this country because it's lekker. Cheers.